Welcome to this edition of City Prepping's News to Watch for this week. If we haven't met before, my name is Chris, and on this channel we discuss emergency preparedness, aka prepping. In this video segment, I try to provide you with the essential news items to watch this week with a specific intent to inform your prepping activities. Now, some of the things happening right now, they're going to impact lives over the next few years and potentially even the next few decades. I'll also announce the winner of last week's giveaway and this week's giveaway item a little later in the video, so definitely stick around. Midterms. We made it through the midterms without any significant civil unrest, so we can now look at how our bicameral system's new alignment will impact our lives and how policy will look moving forward. Now, the Democrats say retain control of the Senate, and it looks like the Republicans, at least at the time of recording this video, may gain control of the House of Representatives. Those 16 races remain too close to call. Previously, the Democrats, they held a slim majority in the House and barely controlled the Senate. A divided Congress next year will mean that the Biden administration will have a more challenging time pushing through its agenda. While preparing for this video, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, he won the GOP backing for the Speaker. In retaliation for 2 impeachment efforts by the Democrats against Trump, House conservatives are already beginning to gear up to investigate the Biden administration officials and the president's sons, Hunter's, past business dealings with China and other countries. They're looking to make the tax cut enacted in 2017 permanent and to seek cost savings in the Social Security and Medicare programs. However, the Democrats now hold a larger majority in the Senate. So the American people can expect continued government gridlock and infighting in and out of Washington. And that's really no surprise here. It's just worth noting. The two parties, they may work together on some things like inflation, the economy, and the energy crisis. Still, it's equally possible that they will continue their infighting, and even less will get done for the people they represent. So how do you think this is going to play out? Dangerous escalation. It finally happened. What is believed to be an errant Russian missile targeting a city in Ukraine, instead it sailed across the Polish border and fell into a Polish town, hitting grain dryers and killing 2 people. I did a quick video about this yesterday, and I'm not going to spend much more time on this subject, but it's important to note this as a new chapter in the war, as the fighting has spilled across the borders into NATO territory, something that has long worried the surrounding nations and could potentially change the dynamics of this conflict. We anticipated much of this as both sides have really struggled to gain the upper hand before winter sets in and change the nature of the battlefield. The 3 big questions are: how far and how much territory will Ukraine regain before the land war is frozen in place? How will Russia react as it increasingly seeks to save face and muster a victory? And lastly, will NATO collectively retaliate or significantly up the stakes in this conflict? The Kremlin has indicated that it would be willing to have peace talks without conditions. Ukraine has responded that for peace talks to happen, Russia must withdraw its troops from the whole of Ukraine, and no negotiations will be made directly with Vladimir Putin. At the moment, it appears that Russia will continue to target civilian targets and infrastructure in Ukraine. So this may turn into a war of attrition if Ukrainian forces control the water supply in Crimea. What do you think? Are there any winners in this conflict, or do we all lose? Are we reaching a global point of no return? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Economy. The 2 important stories to keep an eye on in the economy this week are the implosion of the cryptocurrency giant FTX and the moves on Wall Street. FTX is a cryptocurrency exchange that recently imploded. And you may have the inclination to say, well, so what? I don't own any cryptocurrency. But you would be wrong to dismiss this quickly. The exchange collapsed last week after a run on deposits left an $8 billion shortfall. The ripples of that money essentially just evaporating will be enough to wipe out the recent very modest gains in the stock market. And many people have lost money. Many others have lost a lot of money. And this is one of the biggest financial implosions in history. And it may not end up being on par with the 2008 crash, but it's significant in many ways. The repercussions of the cataclysmic FTX downfall, they're going to be broader than the crypto markets, as they will accelerate downward moves in stocks and commodity markets. This will only further drive up prices for you. Investors who have had assets with FTX will likely never be made whole again, as there's really no mechanism for depositor insurance in the world of crypto. And that's not only for wealthy investors, it's also tiny investors who were dabbling in the cryptocurrency world. FTX's overnight collapse really drove all cryptocurrencies lower and really shook investor confidence in pretty much the whole crypto market. More importantly, though, whenever $8 billion just suddenly evaporates overnight, there's going to be an impact on the overall global economy at a time when inflation is already crushing many. It will push market movers and investors into defensive positioning. This will only lower growth forecasts, increase inflationary pressures, and can even impact jobs and the cost of goods. Well, some early forecasts this week indicated that inflation in the United States might have been peaking. This sudden evaporation of $8 billion will kick that rosy news into next month. If there is a strong Christmas season, the U.S. may be able to stabilize inflation. If not, it will likely very well carry into 2023. And look, I repeatedly say this on the channel that prepping is one of the best ways to beat inflation, and I'm going to repeat it here. Consider downloading our free recession guide and prep your finances like you prep your food. I don't see this getting really any better or brighter for us in this coming year. So, are you feeling inflation? What are you doing to cope with it? Are you using any of your preps? Let our viewers know in the comments below. When we learn from the community, it often helps others that read, and a lot of people have insight and ways of approaching things that maybe someone hadn't thought of before. Thanks to Audible for sponsoring this video. Audible is an amazing place to listen to whatever you're interested in. For me, I've gleaned a lot of insight from business audio books such as the 10X Rule and motivational titles like Living with a Sill. With everything going on in the world, it's been a great way for me to let my mind escape. One of my favorite titles is Project Hail Mary. If you're a sci-fi buff, I can't recommend it enough. As an Audible member, you can choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog, including their latest bestsellers and new releases. Members also get full access to a growing selection of included audiobooks, Audible originals, and podcasts. There's something that appeals to a wide range of listeners located all in one app that you can download or stream. New members can try Audible for free for 30 days by simply visiting audible.com/cityprepping or text cityprepping to 500-500. Food costs. We're covering food costs and shortages in a video next week where we take a deep dive into the global food crisis. You're going to see headline after headline the rest of this year and probably well into next year about global food insecurity and shortages. I'm not going to diminish the gravity of that. Any way you examine the current predicament, there are more problems than usual and more compounding problems than typical. Every single problem exacerbates the other, and agricultural executives, they indicate that global grain and oilseed markets need 2 consecutive normal crop years to stabilize global supplies. But do we have 2 years of stability in our future? Some countries will suffer far worse than others. Nations dependent on fertilizer from other countries or produced from natural gas to sustain high yields, they're going to find themselves in short supply of what they need, and it's going to be costly. Canada sitting on a sizable amount of the mine potash, and in the United States with rich natural gas reserves, they're going to benefit in some ways and suffer in others, mainly through even higher costs for agricultural goods. Both countries are really in a unique position to weather a global food crisis. Neither North American country will likely suffer from dramatic shortages, even if production selection dwindles and the prices go seemingly continually up and up. Some countries worldwide, however, will slip into famine or be forced out of the fertilizer market as countries look to their own. So it's going to get worse, but how bad? Watch for our video next week that will try to answer that question. For this week's giveaway, we're going to give away a pocket knife. This is a Kershaw pocket knife, the same one that I've carried for years. To enroll for a chance to be entered into a giveaway, just simply post a comment below, and next week I'll use a tool to randomly draw a winner from the comments of this video. Just be sure your email address shows on your YouTube account. And this is the most important thing to note. I've been getting a lot of bots that have been slamming my comments, impersonating me, telling people they've won. I'm not going to reach out to you unless your name shows on the screen next week. Please ignore and report those comments. For last week's winner, we used a tool to randomly draw names from the comments section, and the winner of last week's giveaway for the first aid kit was Liberty Off-Road, and the winner for the VanQuest Fat Pack was Donut Sprinks. I'll reach out to you shortly to get those sent to you. 8 billion. We just crossed a global milestone. There are now an estimated 8 billion people on this planet. And many say we have crossed a threshold where we can't sustain that many people on this tiny planet. In some ways, 8 billion is just another number. It indicates that the competition for resources will increase. and you should be preparing and becoming more self-sufficient to combat as more developing nations develop an appetite for the resources required to live as many of us do in developed nations. Prep with a slant towards becoming more self-sufficient and independent because the systems that we've collectively established, they have demonstrated less capability over the last several years to keep pace with the rising population. This is a conversation that I recently had with my mother. There's a book that she gave me called The Big Thirst. It's a fascinating take on the issues that we're experiencing with water. The commodity that we're so used to just having at all times is becoming more and more rare, at least clean water. So I would encourage you, and this is something we'll be rolling out videos on more and more to help you in your journey to self-sufficiency. But think ahead, as one of the things that I've always learned to do over the years is try to look a little over the horizon to anticipate what's coming so I can position myself and my family. Railway strike. Finally, we're going to release a video here shortly on the channel about the railway strike that appears to be more imminent by the day. 12 unions must ratify the agreement that the Biden administration and the railways struck. And their memberships aren't voting to ratify it. That makes a potential strike possible, but can a government even let that happen? If the railways stop working, your grocery stores would be empty within 72 hours, and it would cost the U.S. economy $2 billion per day. Oil wouldn't make it to the refineries. Food wouldn't make it out of the field or off the ranch. And there's really no way to sugarcoat this. The Reagan administration, they fired the air traffic controllers in the 80s when they were deemed too necessary to strike. Railway workers are even more critical. They know that they can leverage this to strike for better conditions. At the same time, the railway companies know that they will have to give concessions to their employees. They deem it better to be forced to do so than to voluntarily do so. At some point, when this boils over and the government intervention will be required, inevitably, the U.S. railway system is really too big to fail. I would encourage you to check out the video we'll release this weekend, and we're going to go into a deep dive on this subject more. Plus, I'll let you know what you should be preparing for should even the threat of a strike further materialize. So that's the big stories for this week. If you have any feedback or any comments, feel free to post those below. And as always, stay safe out there.